Hello, everyone, and welcome to March 2024 Balance Council recommendations. So I spent the last couple of hours going through the different communities and like different streamer recommendations, etc. And I compiled them all together into an imager album that I'll link in the description. So these are Nick R's recommendations. He's got two of them. These are Lirio's. Here's P-Star and Necrotal. I went through, looked at the Google survey that Danny's doing with this community. I looked at the Chinese community's proposed changes. And then I put together my list of what I think is going to go through already. And based on that, I modified my recommendations from before to arrive at these. So I'll go through them one by one. First off is Vess. The reason why I think Vess needs a power buff is because I fundamentally believe that for the long-term health of NR, certain cards like Seltkirk or Rafard's Vengeance or Demovan, those cards that have an order that's super powerful, need to have a non-instant, uncounterable way to gain Zeal. So you can drop Vess, and then if Vess sticks, you can drop War Elephant and click War Elephant in the same turn to guarantee you get some value out of it, right? So right now, Vess doesn't see play because compared to the alternative for giving Zeal, which is Siege Support, Vess is 3 more provisions and is 1 more power. So it's never worth it if you're just going to Zeal one thing. In fact, it's not even 1 more point, because this on deploy usually gets a point, either by reducing cooldown or by boosting an ally unit by 1. Right? So this is 5 for 4, and this is a 5 for 7. So she badly needs a buff. The advantage that Vess has, the only way this ends up being worth it, is if you get to use the ability more than once. It has a cooldown 3, right? But with Stockpile Leader, you could reduce this cooldown, in theory. You could stick this next to Henselt, and Henselt would get boosted every turn from this, right? It's a cooldown card, so there's synergy between that and Henselt already. But usually this just dies, right? So it's almost never worth putting it in your deck. Even if you have a 7 provision slot free, you're better off just playing freaking Tesher Mutna Sword or something. And I think this probably needs 2 buffs, but let's start with a power buff. At 6 power, she's going to be a lot harder to remove, which means you're probably guaranteed to get 1 Zeal, which you're not with this. This can easily be removed with a Joust or whatever. And there's a good chance you get a second click off of it. So for now, let's get it to 6 power. We'll probably try to get it to 6 provision later as well. But this is the first step. You can't take both steps without taking one. And this season, we have a very good shot at getting this through because of what I've seen the other content creators and Reddit and whatever focused on. Milena's getting through, so this was going to be my 3-star vote. But we've moved it to 1-star because that's probably going to go through. And so Vess is going to be our choice here. Plumard. That's the second power buff that we're going for. Why? Well, right now it's a 6 for 4. We'd be making it 7 for 4. 7 for 4 is pretty much where most competitive bronzes are at the moment. But it's 5 power and then 2 bleed. It's not really that strong, right? But the bonded one, the second one, would be 5 plus 4. That's 9. So they would average, if you play both of them, they would average for 8, right? Each, assuming there's enough turns for the bleed to tick. So after 4 turns, right, which is a long time in Gwent, but there's the bonus fact that if you'd have both of them in hand and you have a Flutter on the board and an opponent has something with a high base power, the second one could play for a lot of points. The reason nobody goes for that combo right now is even if you manage to have both, the odds of you, of these living for you to play the bonded is very low because opponents will kill it if you have a Flutter on the board or they'll lock the Flutter or something. At 5 power, it's a lot easier for this to survive. It's a small buff to vampires, and vampires are still not competitive. So that's why I have 2-star. Milena, because movement. This card currently just is easy to remove. And it's got a cooldown, so if it takes opponents 2 turns to kill it, that's fine. Movement doesn't have infinite ways to boost their card, so it's not like it's going to be toxic if it's at 6 power. Griffin Witcher needs to lose its power. This was already a good card. It was already played in lots of decks. In a round 1 with Crystal Skull, if this is not answered and you play all 10 cards, this plays for 26 points. How did I figure that? Well, it's 9 turns of clicks, right? But for the last 3 turns, it's an extra 3 points, right? So 5 plus 9 is 14, plus 9 is 23. Okay, not 26, 23 points. And 23 points is basically a Dagon. Dagon is 26. Like, that's a lot of points for a 5 provision card. This is, right now, it's basically just a better Reinforced Ballista. They both have cooldown 1. This comes down as a 4+1 armor if you put it on range row. This comes down as 5. And it has the adrenaline thing. And when it gets locked, it pulls out your Redanian from the deck. Your Secret Service agent, which a lot of people are running in NR right now. So it's like, why is a Witcher auto-include in every stockpile siege deck? Makes no sense, right? This should never have been buffed. We want to revert that. Vigo, because it got buffed by Council like 4 seasons ago for no reason. It was already the best NG Gold played in every single NG deck except for Masquerade Ball. If your deck has bronzes, you play Vigo. It was a no-brainer, and it never needed a power buff. And so we're just reverting that. Eudora, because this is a card that starts in, like, banished. That means from before round 1 starts, you have 24 cards instead of 25. That means, like, all of your round 1 draws are like 10% less likely to be a bad card and 10% more likely to be a good card that you want, right? Because you've thinned this out already. And then when you play 3 Sultans, which most Precision Strike decks do, you're gonna play this for 5 free tempo. That's better than Roach and 1 less provision. That's a silly amount, right? This should be more like Imlerith, which is 3, right? Or Aileron, which is 5, or Hubert, which is 5. But those cards don't improve your round 1 thinning and can brick, right? You can draw those cards. Or Imlerith, you have to draw that card. That doesn't really help your consistency. This is like, those cards on crack, and it's 8 provisions. The least we can do is lose in 1 power. Plus, Precision Strike is pretty OP. It's been like a third of above 2,500. A third of the decks are Precision Strike. You can look at gwentdata.com if you're not if you don't believe me. You might say, like, why not nerf Oak or Chariot? Because Nick R is already doing those. So again, I've gone through all of the council recommendations from everybody else. Spent about an hour trying to predict what's going to go through based on past councils and what's already happening. And so these changes that I'm recommending take all that into account. Care Trolled. So even though Self Wound is probably going to get over nerfed because, like, Lyria wants to nerf Foulblood, Nick R wants to nerf Sigvald, and I think I saw somebody else had a Self Wound nerf. This card is still so OP. It's in every single Skellige deck. Pirates play it, Warriors play it, Devotion or non-Devotion. Alchemy plays it even. And of course, Self Wound plays it. And this card is the reason why Sigvald and Old Geared and Draco Turtle are all have a ridiculously high floor. The second they're played, they clash with use Care Turtle to clash them, and they get a ton of points. So if we want Self Wound and Skellige in general to be healthy moving forward, this card that allows, you know, Skellige to answer 2 threats in 1 turn and plays for 1,000,000 points and can be played on a dry pass. Like, this is the most broken card in the game right now, in my opinion. And I have no idea why it took this long for it to be our 3-star vote, but we're gonna do it. The other provision nerfs we had were things like Letho previously and Flotsam. But like Maddox getting nerfed, Sappers are getting nerfed, Letho's getting nerfed, and Flotsam is 100% getting nerfed. Like, everybody's nerfing all those cards. So I've tried to find cards where we can make an impact. And Priestess is, I think, the thing we could all agree has been way too strong. This card plays for like 20, 30 points still. I've played against Renfrey Priestess even this season. It's silly. And Nick R is buffing it for some reason. He's making Verdun Roche be 2 power. Insane to me. So, this needs a nerf, has deserved nerf for a very long time. It's like a toxic, uninteractive, unfun card to play against. Like, just nerf this. Like, they dealt with the Onager provision nerf, they'll deal with this too. That deck has had provisions to spare. They have so many provisions, they usually run 2 locks. Yeah. Dwarven Skirmisher. So this card is 1 power, but 3 damage on deploy and 3 damage again on order. That's more damage than a Colossal Ifrit. Like, why? This bronze is better than a bunch of Skellige golds. Okay, like Dunnar. Where's Dunnar? He's 7 provisions, right? Yeah. He's a conditional 4 damage. There's like there's an NR card. Seal it, right? 2 and 2. Now I'm not, these are kind of power crept cards, but like 6 damage from a 4 provision card. No one else has that. I don't care if it's 4 power. This was one of those weird reworks that the CDPR did a while ago. And just, if you're wondering why Precision Strike is so busted, unicorns aren't it. Zoltan's been around for a while. It's the bronze package. Like, this season it was Ren'Py Strike. 2 seasons ago it was all the same bronzes, but like with Shiru and Mahakam Pass. But the 4P bronzes were always there. This card has been busted since CDPR reworked it 1.5 2 years ago, and it was initially in like Renfree Milva Harmony, and then it was in like every single annoying, stupid, OP mid-range Scoia'tael deck has always had this card. There's no reason for a 4 provision card to give this much reach. It's so stupid. Just and you can even move it to the range row, and that doesn't stop the order, because the only condition for order is barricade. And they can give it armor any point after the fact. Like, what am I supposed to do? Use Doragary on a 4 provision card? Well, I do all the time. Because if you don't remove this, then their Zoltan can kill a 6. Or their Pyrotech can kill a 7. Like, this is insane. This card, combined with Milva, it can kill us. Like, just 3 points of damage reach with Precision Strike already giving you 5 is just way too good. But it's just a bonkers card to begin with. Now, I know that like some of you are dwarf fans, and you know, like, dwarves are wholesome, but like the way to give dwarves control is to buff cards like this. Like, we can make this 8 provisions or 7 power or whatever, right? Because like it has a deploy of 3. Like, compare these two. How can anybody ever play this when this exists in the game? So you might say at 5 provisions no one will ever play it. You're right. So next season, if this goes through, we'll give it +1 power. Then it will be 2 + 6. That's 8 for 5. That's pretty good for a control card. Cyclops is 5 for 5, and nobody's suggesting you stop playing that. What about Brockwar Warrior? Brockwar Warrior is also OP, but Brockwar Warrior does not add reach. It's not a card you put on the board that has an order that you can activate and combine with a Gutting Slash at any time, right? You play Brockwar Warrior, and then you get to play something else. So Brockwar Warrior is not the same type of problem as this. It's just a slightly overtuned bronze. Brockwar Warrior could lose the power and be a, you know, whatever. But it's not a priority because right now there aren't any super dominant decks that run Brockwar Warrior. So. All right, next in terms of nerfs, we have Jackpot. Jackpot, I know some people are nerfing Yago. That's silly. Like, we'll find, like, you know, if somebody wants to play Yago in Pirate's Treasure or something, they should be allowed to. We shouldn't nerf 1 card to the ground that's only OP with 1 leader. Yago has been in the game for a long time, and it wasn't a problem until Jackpot got 2 leader provision buffs. It should never have gotten those. Jackpot is like the easiest Syndicate leader to play. It requires no coin management. Overprofit becomes points. And as a result, any engines like Madame or Peaches or Tax Collectors or Saul or Heviter, those cards constantly get boosted if you start at 9 coin. And you just stay at 9 coin all game because you play Madame and King of Beggars, and you decree into Madame turn 1, round 1 after clicking Stratagem. Jackpot should never be the most competitive Syndicate deck, and it's been like that for 3 seasons now. It needs to stop. It needs to lose a provision. There are other things that we have, we believe deserve a provision buff, like, for example, Naglfar and Imlerith, you know, right here. But from what I've seen in the Reddit balance buff coordination tool, in Metallic Danny's survey, I think those cards are getting buffs anyway. And so I ended up removing Imlerith from my list and going with these 3 instead. Maybe Imlerith should go back in here. I'm not 100% sure if Trained Hawk is going to get enough votes. And maybe we just put, just like we have Malena at 3-star, we should put Imlerith at 3-star. But Jackpot for sure should get a nerf. Sarah's Fearless. This is to compensate for the over-nerfing of Self-Wound that's about to happen. Because I want to nerf Control because it deserves to be nerfed. Nick R wants to nerf Sigvald because Russian players are tired of getting dunked on by Miamon. And they've just never understood Self-Wound. It does not play into the Spork playstyle that a lot of them like. And they love playing Diva Warriors, and they never want to play Self-Wound. And so they've decided to nerf Self-Wound into the ground because Self-Wound is cheat. It plays cards that you can't punch. Well, top titties. So this will counteract the Sigvald nerf, but the Control nerf I still think should go through. And then down the road, if we can get Sigvald back to 9 provisions, we can have some new interesting decks like Golden Necker Self-Wound. Some variety. So let's make this happen. This is a very cool card you don't see much of. I run it in my Self-Wound. Opponents hover over it and read the tooltip and try to understand it, but then their time runs out and you know, yeah. And of course Imlerith, because why is Eudora 8 provision and this is 9? This should be the same cost as Knickers and Hubert and all those other things. And 3 power is like kind of low anyway. This probably deserves a power buff also at some point, but he does allow for some interesting combos. You could Imlerith a Morvad the turn before last and then play Ozrel as your last card without ever having, like, requiring your opponent to kill your Morvad, or so like your Morvad can play for twice, right? You can use this to consume a Griffin without having to play Fruits of Iskith. So other decks could run the Griffin Mamuna combo, right? You could run Griffin Mamuna in a Kashi deck or something, right? Use Mamuna to proc Throth, because if you have Sabbath, you get to play the Griffin or the second Fiend or the Brock Ogre Warrior, Necker Warrior, right? And in Frost, of course, you could use it to put an El Conqueror in your graveyard and then Mamuna the other one out and play that one for 9 points, right? There's also other cool things. You can use this to eat a Goliath so that your opponent can't kill it and pull out their big card, right? And give yourself an Ozrel target. And then in a Necromancer's Tome deck, you can consume like a bronze, like an Incubus, and then play your other Incubus from hand. And because the first Incubus is in the graveyard, that one will pop out too, right? Because in a Necromancer's Tome deck, you want to have one of each bronze in the graveyard so that when you play the other one from hand, it pops out. But you don't always get to put every bronze in the graveyard. This puts the bronze in the graveyard. You may also have a Necromancy that you don't want bricked, right? Again, this can help you do that. It's a way other than Cyclops / Death Wish to put cards from your hand into the graveyard without losing value. So I think this is a cool card, and will open up some deck building possibilities for monsters. As always, if you have any questions or comments, let me know. I'm happy to listen to any feedback. If you think I'm doing something wrong, tell me, etc. But this is after, after kind of revising this list throughout the season, this is what we've arrived at. So I hope you vote with me this way for a better Gwent future. Please like and subscribe.